What's up, guys? Welcome to this edition of a Funko Popcast. I'm DK Wrestler.
And I'm MD Shady.
And today is another, fandom-related podcast, and it's all about the cartoon channel of Nickelodeon, which, of course, if you're a fan of Nickelodeon, but not necessarily Funko, that's cool. If you're a fan of Funko Pops, that's good. But if you're a fan of both Nickelodeon and Funko Pops, and especially the Nickelodeon Funko Pops, then that's even better, because, of course, today we're going to be discussing a lot about Nickelodeon. There's a lot of memories I can mention about Nickelodeon. That's how we could probably kick off, is early memories of watching Nickelodeon, which I can say for myself, and I'm sure MD will mention about this also, is that since we are from Canada, technically Nickelodeon, the channel, didn't actually exist unless you had the TV network YTV. There's a lot of awesome shows, and yeah, I feel like some of the best cartoons I watched as a kid were from Nickelodeon slash YTV if you're from Canada.
Yeah, I definitely remember watching a lot of Nickelodeon shows through YTV, but then also we did have like a satellite for some part of my childhood. So then we would get like American stations as well. So definitely do remember there being just Nickelodeon as its whole channel. But yeah, earliest memories of Nickelodeon. I mean, it's been my entire life. Nickelodeon's been tons of shows. Of course, there is those like huge shows like SpongeBob, but then there also is a lot more niche shows that maybe people don't know quite a bit about or have kind of maybe just heard of and never actually watched any of the shows. So there's definitely a lot going on for Nickelodeon.
So how this podcast is going to go is that we have 10 shows listed down. We're going to talk about our opinions of the shows and then some of the Funko Pops that are involved, like that we can think of off the top of our heads. We're going to do some honorable mentions like usual for fandom related podcasts, and then ending it off with Funko Pops we want to see next in said lineup, which in this case would be Nickelodeon, whether it's like individual pops or sets that haven't had pops. So MD, are you ready to talk about some Nickelodeon?
Absolutely. Let's get right to it.
So the first show that we're going to be talking about, banger show, I would say, Rugrats, released August 11th, 1991, and had ended August 1st, 2004. Rugrats is definitely a show I watched as a kid, especially one of those shows where the theme song can get stuck in your head and you don't have to memorize lyrics because it was all instrumental. I remember really liking Reptar the most out of all the characters, even though, of course, Reptar is kind of like a Godzilla ripoff, but at the same time, I do remember watching I don't remember which one it was, but I know they did obviously the Rugrats movies, and they did like Reptar versus Reptar, and I think that's where the one Funko Pop comes to play, where you have the green Reptar and then its chase was the purple one, which I'll get into in a little bit. But yeah, you know what? I enjoyed Rugrats, and actually maybe MD can talk about this a little bit because I just remembered about that, is the sequel series they ended up doing called All Grown Up.
Yeah, Rugrats is a beloved show by many, and it makes sense why. It's a really good show. Quite funny as well, especially like watching it back in like your adult years, and you kind of catch some different things that go on with that show that maybe our younger minds couldn't really think of. Great characters in the show like Tommy, Chucky, Phil, Lil, Angelica. So many characters. The adult characters are great as well, and of course Reptar is amazing. And yeah, I mean, when you're talking about the show, you got to talk about the movies as well. Rugrats in Paris, I think Rugrats the movie was the first one, and then even like Rugrats Meet the Wild Thornberrys, like that was a really cool one as well.
And then as terms to Funko Pops, there's quite a bit in the set, so we won't go through all of them, but what I wrote down is just like Tommy and Chucky, they've done quite a bit of those, whether it's singularly or in a multi-pack, the Angelica Pops, even like the Cynthia Pop for the NFT set, and of course, they've done quite a bit of Reptars, like I mentioned, where it's like Common and Chase, they did the glow-in-the-dark version, and then I feel like there's another one that I can't think of off the top of my mind.
Yeah, there definitely is quite a few Reptars at this point. I think there's also like the one with Reptar cereal. But for the most part, this lineup is pretty dang good. I remember when we got the first wave years ago, it felt like it was lacking some characters like Susie Carmichael, I think is her name. I could be wrong about that. And then, of course, like Phil and Lil, but we did end up getting those characters in a later wave. So that was really cool. I do think that there could be more characters added to it to kind of round it out, but what we've got has been pretty awesome.
Next Nickelodeon show we're talking about is Ren and Stimpy, August 11th, 1991, which is the same day that Rugrats came out, and ended on October 20th, 1996. For the first, I believe it's a total of 6 seasons. So I think the first five, as shown on my notes, were from Nickelodeon, while the final season was actually on MTV. I don't really have much to say because I haven't really watched much, but I know you have. But as terms to pops, I know they've done Ren and Stimpy, and then I believe Powder Toast Man is a part of that lineup too, which is one that I remember off the top of my head.
Deacon, you stupid idiot. Yeah, Ren and Stimpy's pretty awesome. It was kind of one of those groundbreaking shows too, where like it was a kids cartoon, but it was very adult themed. It was not really directed towards kids, kind of like shows like, let's say, like Beavis and Butthead, for example, which is funny because now that I think about it, it is just a show where the title is just two characters' names. It's definitely a really cool show, and I definitely have to go back and watch more of it. I haven't watched a ton of Ren and Stimpy, but it's so funny and definitely a groundbreaking show, especially on a channel like Nickelodeon. And then, yeah, pop wise, of course, you do have the two Ren and Stimpy pops. I believe they both had the chase versions where they were like the white with black polka dots, I think is what those chase versions looked like. Powdered Toast Man, I do have that in my collection. That is a wicked pop. I don't know Ren and Stimpy enough to like think of like what other characters could get pops besides Powdered Toast Man, because that is just awesome. But I'm sure there are some other characters that should be added to this lineup at some point.
Next show listed is Rocko's Modern Life, September 18th, 1993 to November 24th, 1996. Once again, this is one of those shows that I don't know too much of, and I know MD knows a little bit more than I do. But as terms to Funko Pops, I know that there was the Rocko and Spunky Pop and Buddy, realistically, before it was called Pop and Buddy, and back in the day when we used to call it the 2-for-1 for Funko Pops. And there was also like the Chase version, which I believe you own in your collection, if I'm not mistaken. There was also Heifer, I believe. And then I guess recently the Rocko for the NFT set for Nickelodeon Series 2, where he's trying to like lift up the weights. And then speaking of the NFT set is the Ed Bighead. That was also a part of that Series 2 NFT set.
Rocko's Modern Life, really awesome show as well. The most recent thing that I've watched from Rocko's is the most recent thing that they put out, which was I think it's just called Rocko's Modern Life, the movie. I could be wrong about that, but I watched that a couple years ago when it came out, and that was actually pretty good. It was a good installment. Of course, we haven't seen Rocko or Heifer, for that matter, like on TV in a while for new stuff, so that was pretty sweet to see. The Funko Pops for Rocko's Modern Life are pretty dang sweet. I do have that Chase version where he's like sick. That's a pretty awesome pop. I do really like that one. And then I think the Heifer was a glow chase, I think there was for that pop, but I don't own that. The NFT set was definitely really good. I really enjoyed that as well. But I do feel like there's still like more characters that we probably could get in Funko Pop form.
Next show we have listed here is Blue's Clues, September 8th, 1996, all the way until August 2006. So basically almost a 10-year run with this show. This show is one of those ones that I did watch as a kid. And actually, I kind of rewatched it because our buddy Robbie D, shout out to him, his daughter has been watching Blue's Clues a lot. So the one time I was over, I was like rewatching some of the episodes. And I mean, that theme song is also pretty catchy. And then some of the songs about like the handy dandy notebook can also be catchy. And yeah, so far for Funko Pops also, there's only been Blue with the flocked version exclusive to Hot Topic, and then there's Steve with the handy dandy notebook from New York Comic Con. There definitely can be a couple of more pops, maybe even like perhaps a Pop Town with the house maybe. But yeah, Blue's Clues, probably one of like the best, like I guess I would say preschool kid shows, I guess I would call it as. And I think it's one of the only ones that we're talking about as terms to Nickelodeon for that matter. But what an awesome show. Definitely one of my favorites growing up.
Yeah, Blue's Clues is one of those nostalgia rockers for me all the time. One thing is obviously when like Steve left the show, I remember being a kid and bawling my eyes out when he left the show, not really realizing like why he was leaving or what was going on, and just the show like being so much weirder for me with new characters being brought in or new like hosts, I guess you could say, of the show. And then of course, I'm sure that a lot of you guys have probably seen it in the video where Steve kind of addressed addresses that. So that was really cool. And that definitely got me in my feels as well. But yeah, Blue's Clues is an amazing show. I love that show so much. There's definitely a ton of Funko Pops that I could think of that could be added to this set. But the Steve Pop is amazing. The Flocked Blue is also a really great pop. And me and DK actually might go meet Steve from Blue's Clues pretty soon. So that would be pretty sweet to get that pop signed. There's so many pops that I could talk about, but I think we're going to save that for later in this podcast.
Next show listed is Hey Arnold, October 7th, 1996 to June 8th, 2004. One of those shows that I also don't know too much about, but I know a little bit. I think I've seen 1 or 2 episodes of it. So I guess I'll go straight to the Funko Pops that I thought of off the top of my mind, which are Arnold Shortman with the banana suit. I always thought that that was a pretty funny pop, especially a little throwback to a little YouTube show that MD Shady did back in the day called Super Banana Man, where he actually went places in a banana suit. And there was actually an episode where he was buying bananas. And I remember this vividly, like it was yesterday, how a little bit funny it was, where he goes and buys a pack of bananas and uses, I believe, a $1 American bill to pay for his bananas. I don't know how I remember that. And then there's also, I believe, Gerald had a strawberry suit, if I'm not mistaken. So I assume that's probably based on the same episode, but I just don't remember it. And then the other one I could think of is when they did the Slime Arnold for the Nickelodeon Series 1 NFT set. But otherwise, I can't exactly remember besides, like, obviously the regular Arnold and Gerald. And I think, isn't there, like, is it Arnold? I know there was a girl character.
Hey Arnold, a show that I haven't watched in so long. And again, it is kind of like Rocko's Modern Life, where the most recent thing that I watched was the movie or the episode that they'd put out where it's kind of like a ripoff of Indiana Jones. Arnold is looking for his parents. I thought that was pretty good. I didn't mind that at all. It was nice to see an extension to that show as well, because obviously that show hasn't gotten new episodes in so long at this point. But Funko Pop wise, yeah, the banana suit Arnold is pretty funny. And then the Gerald with the strawberry one is awesome. And then, yeah, Helga Pataki, I believe, is the other pop that's in that set. And she was like the bully, but she was also like in love with Arnold as well. That's why she was bullying him. So yeah, Hey Arnold was a great show. Definitely one again that I haven't watched in so long. I would love to go back sometime soon and watch some episodes or even the entire series in full. Great show. And there's definitely a few characters that could definitely be made into Funko Pop form. I definitely think that should happen because the couple different sets of Hey Arnold Pops that we got have been pretty decent.
Next show we're talking about, we kind of brought it up while talking about, or MD kind of brought it up while talking about Rugrats. That is the Wild Thornberrys, released September 1st, 1998, and it ended on June 11th, 2004. Once again, another one of those shows that I don't really know too much about, so thankfully I got MD here to back me up. But as terms to pops, I know there is only, I believe, 5 pops for the set, if I'm not mistaken, because in the original set, there was the Eliza Thornberry, the Donnie Thornberry, and then Nigel, but then the new wave of Nickelodeon pops that had came out with a couple of ones that I don't want to mention right now because we will be bringing them up later on in the podcast. There is the remakes of Eliza and Donnie Thornberry where Donnie does have the tongue out, which I actually looked at the pictures of both of those pops recently for Donnie, and they're almost kind of similar, but besides the newer one having the tongue sticking out.
The Wild Thornberrys. I loved the show so much growing up. And like I'd mentioned earlier, I went to go see the Rugrats Meet the Wild Thornberrys in theaters. And actually, just recently, I bought 2 sealed copies of that movie, one on VHS and one on DVD. And I think they both came with different things. I know the one on, I want to say the one on DVD, but it could have been the one on VHS came with like a washcloth as well as like a promotional item for it, which is super sweet. But the reason why that movie had so much nostalgia for me is because when you went to go see it in the theaters, they would give you this scratch card. You could like scratch it at certain points in the movie. It would tell you like the number on the card to scratch, and you'd smell it, and it would smell like whatever's happening in that scene. So super nostalgic that way. What a great show. Definitely love the premise of the show as well. And of course, when you have mashups with like the Rugrats, that's really dang cool. As terms to the Funko Pops, I definitely think there needs to be more. I love that first wave. I think that that was pretty dang sweet. And then the couple other pops that they added for the remix were pretty cool. The Donnie is pretty dang sweet as well. And Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, he voices Donnie. Very freaking cool. Love Flea, my favorite bassist of all time. So yeah, definitely need more pops for the Wild Thornberrys. And that's definitely a set that I need to collect. I just haven't really gotten around to it.
The next show we're going to be talking about, and kind of a big reason of doing this, is Spongebob Squarepants, released on May 1st, 1999, and it's still going on today. It's actually the only show that I'll be talking about today that actually is still going on today, while all the other shows have discontinued. SpongeBob this year celebrating its 25th anniversary, which pretty crazy to know that we're starting to feel really old now, knowing that SpongeBob is 25 years old at this point. Definitely a show, in case you're wondering, that I did watch as a kid. If I mentioned, oh, I'd never seen SpongeBob, you guys would probably be tuning out of this podcast if I mentioned that. SpongeBob, great show with a lot of great characters and a lot of great moments also, and so many cool moments and characters like I mentioned. And there's just so much to talk about with SpongeBob. Like, realistically, we could have done a SpongeBob podcast itself and talk about the different moments, but we just thought we'll throw it in with a whole best of Nickelodeon pod here. And when it comes to Funko Pops, of course, there's so many Pops to talk about. I think it's the most Pops out of all the Nickelodeon shows we're talking about today. So you got to think about that OG wave with the original SpongeBob, Patrick Squidward, Mr. Krabs, and Sandy Cheeks. Imagination SpongeBob, that's a moment that I'm glad that they did in pop form. And then even some of the newer SpongeBob Pops for the 25th anniversary set. Two to mention right now are Doodle Bob for the common wave that people have been wanting for such a long time. And then the Hot Topic exclusive Mocking SpongeBob is so hilarious how they pulled that off in pop form. And I can't wait to see more SpongeBob Pops, especially like newer characters they haven't done yet. Hopefully with New York Comic Con coming up very soon, that maybe that might be able to happen.
SpongeBob SquarePants. Oh my goodness. Another movie that I had seen in theaters. But yeah, as terms of that show, maybe one of the greatest cartoons of all time. And I know a lot of people might be like, oh, well, the new seasons, oh, it sucks. Just like The Simpsons, just like Family Guy. Shut up. I don't care. It's such a good show. So many different characters and just such an awesome premise for the show. I love how sometimes they incorporate like Patchy the Pirate or like the fisherman and he'll drop something, like for example with the pop that DK had discussed with Doodle Bob, where the fisherman drops his pencil and it goes down in the ocean, and then the whole episode is about this pencil, and of course Doodle Bob becomes born and he's kind of evil. So yeah, definitely just one of the best shows ever, honestly. And there's so many Funko Pops that can be made. There's been quite a bit already, but before I go into the Pops, I also want to say that SpongeBob is also like one of the most quotable shows of all time, in my opinion. I find myself quoting SpongeBob, not even gonna lie, at least once a day. I'll be saying something at work and I'll quote SpongeBob, even if it's just like 15 hours later, like stuff like that. Or of course Doodle Bob, or just so many things. The Ripped Pants song, I sing that all the time. So now going into the Funko Pops, of course you have that OG wave, which was real ugly Pops. I really hope that at some point we do get updated versions of just those classic characters. They don't need to be doing anything else. Just new molds with how Funko can do now would be great for some of those characters, like Mr. Krabs, which I would say arguably is like the worst one. And then there's of course that brand new wave that we just got, which is genius. It was so smart for Funko to make a set of Pops, even though I don't like just like, oh, look, here's so many more SpongeBobs. All those memes are a perfect way to get people who don't even necessarily collect Funko, but they see that mocking SpongeBob at Hot Topic on the shelf and they're like, wow, I send this meme all the time. I want this and I want to put this on my computer desk or whatever. Just such a genius idea by Funko to make that wave. And yeah, this is one of my biggest for like, I want more Funko Pops for this set. There's so many characters in Bikini Bottom and even like not in Bikini Bottom, like Patchy the Pirate. There's just so much that they can do, and I hope that Funko does start pumping out more characters than just SpongeBob.
The Krusty Krab pizza. I think I butchered that a little bit, but it's funny you mentioned about like a lot of quotable things, and especially like the 15 hours later. The amount of times on our channel, if you guys notice how much I use the a few moments later clip, and probably will still continue. Next show we're talking about Fairly Odd Parents. So it first began on March 30th, 2001 and ended on November 25th, 2006, but then a rerun with new episodes happened starting February 18th, 2008 all the way until July 26th, 2017. Probably up there with SpongeBob as terms to the show for Nickelodeon that I've seen the most times. Probably tied with that because I feel like I've seen the same amount of Fairly Odd Parents episodes as I've probably seen with SpongeBob. Like, this is a show that I enjoyed the whole premise of course, Timmy Turner with his fairy godparents. And the whole premise of the show is awesome. And the unique different background characters like the Crimson Chin, even the different versions of like, there was the one episode with like Timmy getting like jacked up. Like, there's so many memorable episodes of Fairly Odd Parents that it was just so enjoyable to see. Even if like, I'll ask my mom, hey, when's Fairly Odd Parents coming on? Oh, it's coming on at 4 o'clock. You'd be excited for like every day at 4 o'clock to see Fairly Odd Parents go up on the TV, whether it is a new episode or a rerun. It was such an awesome show. It was very awesome to see that last year in 2023, as we're recording this, to see the first ever Fairly Odd Parents Funko Pop being the 3-pack with Timmy, Cosmo, and Wanda. There could have been a chance if we did this last year that we may not even have had Fairly Odd Parents on this podcast because there was no Funko Pops involved with it. But also with this set, there's rumored to be a new set coming out with 3 separate pops of Timmy, Cosmo, and Wanda. I think we briefly talked about that on the channel. So hopefully that does come to fruition depending on when you're listening to this podcast. But yeah, there definitely is a plethora of Fairly Odd Parents pops that should be made at some point.
Fairly Odd Parents. Yeah, I have to agree with DK. Definitely seen it like up there with SpongeBob. I would arguably say that it could be my favorite Nickelodeon show of all time. It's just so good. The premise of the show is so good. The episodes are very well written. The characters are hilarious. The dynamic between Wanda and Cosmo is amazing. And there's just like so many memorable characters on the show as well. It's just such a great show. And I'm so happy that that 3-pack came out. And I don't have it in my collection yet, which is crazy, but I think I do know someone who wants to sell me theirs. So I'm hoping to get that into my collection. But as terms to pops that like could be in this set, yeah, like DK said, a plethora. There's so many pops that could be in this set, of course, because we haven't really seen many characters for this set yet. We've only seen this 3-pack, whereas there's family members, there's friends, there's different fairies, there's people from the school. There's so many different characters that we could see. And I can't wait because I really think that we will start seeing some great waves for the Fairly Odd Parents.
Next show, we're talking about another show that I didn't think we would be ending up talking about at all for this, and that is The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius, released July 20th, 2002, up until November 25th, 2006. This show was a banger. I love the animation style compared to like the, I guess, 2D animation style you would see with, let's say, like a SpongeBob or a Fairly Odd Parents. It was kind of more 3-dimensional. The characters are awesome with, of course, Jimmy Neutron. You also have some of Jimmy's friends there, and then Eisner, llama, 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 llama. Yeah, Carl and Sheen, and then Goddard the dog. Like, they had some pretty awesome episodes on Jimmy Neutron, and I think there was a movie or two that I remember watching. Definitely a show that once again I watched a lot of as a kid, and now I'm questioning myself: did I watch more Jimmy Neutron or Fairly Odd Parents? I feel like I might have watched more Fairly Odd Parents because I think there's more episodes. I could be wrong though. There was one Funko Pop that they just recently announced for the recent Nickelodeon lineup of Jimmy Neutron, and it had a lot of people exciting, and especially the rumored new wave coming out that has another Jimmy Neutron. It's supposed to have Carl and it's supposed to have Sheen in that, which is a perfect 3-pop set, realistically, Jimmy Neutron and his best friends. And I feel like, and I've mentioned on the channel, that the way that they would do this new Jimmy Neutron that is different from the Jimmy Neutron we have for the new Nickelodeon wave is to do a Pop and Buddy with Goddard the dog, or maybe Goddard the dog it's by itself at some point, maybe as a Comic-Con exclusive. But I feel like with the different character designs, this would be a fun Funko Pop set to collect.
Jimmy Neutron. Oh my God. So starting with the movie. Didn't see this one in theaters, but I do remember having the VHS tape, which I still do. I remember like it had like the yellow clamshell, which was really cool to me as a kid. But yeah, like DK said, with the animation style, it's a lot different from what you see on Nickelodeon with that like 3D computer generated kind of animation, which was awesome. Characters in the show are wicked as well. I can't wait to see more characters be part of the set. It is pretty cool to say that currently I do have a 100% complete Jimmy Neutron Funko Pop set right now, totaling one pop. But that's okay because it's a great one. I was super happy to find that Funko Pop because it's so cool and was a character that I was dying for Funko to make, and they finally did. So now we need more characters because this set could easily have 10 plus characters in it.
And the 10th and final show we're talking about before the honorable mentions is Danny Phantom, released April 3rd, 2004 and ended August 24th, 2007. I watched a few I think I definitely watched more episodes than a lot of the shows we talked about, like especially earlier on, like Ren and Stimpy and Rocko's Modern Life. But I did watch, I want to say maybe about 5-10 episodes of Danny Phantom, and very good for the most part of what I've seen. And for the Funko Pop lineup, there is, of course, the New York Comic-Con Danny Phantom that people were really excited about, the Ember McLean and the Vlad Plastimus. Those pops are pretty cool, besides the fact that I believe people were mad that originally advertised in the box there was the white stripe on Vlad's head, but then it didn't end up happening for the pop later on when it actually was in the hands of people. It would be pretty cool to see some more Danny Phantom pops besides those three. And then, of course, I believe they did do a Freddy Funko as Danny Phantom for one of the box of funds, whether that was for San Diego Comic-Con or like maybe the Fright Night box they did for New York Comic-Con the last couple of years. But yeah, Danny Phantom definitely up there for one of the best Nickelodeon shows in a lot of people's opinions.
Danny Phantom's sweet. Same like animators for Fairly Odd Parents, so there's always the whole like speculation that Danny Phantom could be Timmy Turner. And honestly, I've watched some videos where it's like, damn, like there's a lot of correlating things where this could very well be true. Whether it is or not, though, that's a different story. But great show. The pops that we've got so far are pretty sweet. I think I'm kind of content with just having that Comic-Con Danny Phantom pop. I have that in my collection and I love that pop so much. But yeah, great show. Definitely need to watch more of that show as well because that's one that I haven't watched in forever. I do want to see like a normal version of Danny Phantom, like before he like goes ghost, like when he has like his black hair or whatever. But besides that, I don't really know like how many characters we really need in that set besides what we've got already, which is pretty cool.
So now we're going to go to our honorable mentions section, and I have a decent amount listed down. Some I excluded because they may or may not be on my list of pops that I want to see next for the Nickelodeon lineup. But the first one I put was Doug. Doug, for the most part, is a Nickelodeon show besides, I believe, the final couple of seasons, which it was actually acquired by Disney, and even the pops that Funko made are a part of the Disney lineup rather than being a part of, let's say, the pop television or animation lineup for Nickelodeon. So I thought I'd mention that. Plus, it's a show that I know for sure I have not seen any episodes of, and I wasn't sure if MD really seen Doug. I think he may have seen some, but I thought I would just leave that out, but give it an honorable mention. I also have Real Monsters on this list because I couldn't really talk much about it, but maybe MD might have. Invader Zim, because I know that's pretty popular, but I'm not sure between the both of us how much we've seen of Invader Zim. A show I believe both of us have not seen, I could be wrong, is Avatar The Last Airbender. I know people are probably thinking, why didn't you include this? And that's because I don't know really what to go off of besides talking about the Funko Pops. So I thought I'd just give it an honorable mention because a lot of people do like Avatar The Last Airbender slash the like spin-off sequel of Legend of Korra. So I thought I'd bring that. And then I thought I'd bring up some of the live action shows since there isn't really many that obviously haven't been made into Funko Pop form, but obviously when you think of the live action, two that come to mind that aren't on my list for pops I want to see next is Drake and Josh, which a lot of people do like that show regardless of like the whole situation involving, I believe it's Drake, Josh, I don't exactly remember. I know there's controversy with one of them, I believe. And then iCarly, a lot of people do enjoy iCarly. So I thought I'd mention those as honorable mentions. Not sure if you have anything, MD, before moving on to like pops we want to see next that maybe might not give away your list.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many Nickelodeon shows. I guess I'll start with like live action ones, like you said, Drake and Josh, an amazing show. I used to love that show. Cousin Skeeter, I feel feel like is also a Nickelodeon show. I could be wrong about that, but I swear it is. All that, Keenan and Kel, I mean, there's so many. But then back to cartoons like you mentioned, All Real Monsters, Avatar, definitely need to watch Avatar. I've heard a lot of good things and I've like watched some clips, and that seems like a show like right up my alley. I would love the kind of Americanized sort of like anime style for it. Invader Zim, like you said, yeah, that show took over Hot Topic in the early 2000s, that's for sure. There's so many shows. Nickelodeon is awesome, man. Yeah, I guess let's get into the pops that we'd like to see.
So when it comes to the list, of course, we comprised of five, whether it's five pops or five sets of pops that we want to see realistically. What I'm going to do is let MD go first, because we do have this trend sometimes where we may have some of the same and that like minuses the list for one of us. So I'm going to let MD go first, and maybe I'll give a little bit of reactions. Maybe I won't. And then I'll leave mine for last and then let MD get his reaction of my pops to end off the pod.
Okay, so this is the only one on here that's actually a set of pops, and that's for Dora the Explorer. How is there not Dora the Explorer pops is beyond me. When I thought about it, I'm like, whoa, how has this not been a thing yet? So I think a perfect first wave would be Dora, Boots, Swiper, the grumpy old troll, and Benny the Bull. What a badass Benny the Bull is. Love that guy. So yeah, I think five pops is perfect. I think that would be so great.
It's funny enough, I also had Dora the Explorer on my list, so I thought I'd react to that, but I actually only had it under two Funko Pops, where it's Dora the Explorer with Boots as a pop and buddy, and then Swiper. If you're going to choose two characters, I feel like Dora, possibly Boots, if it's like together, and then Swiper as like the three characters that, especially if Funko wants to go down, and I'm going to put these in quotations, you guys can't see me do this, but lean startup. Where I also think it would be funny is that you do quotes on the top flap, and Dora's would say Swiper no swiping 3 times, and then Swiper says, "Aw, man."
Yeah, I definitely like the idea of that, but also Benny the Bull, man. Come on. All right, so going on to the next pop I would like to see. This is for the Rugrats lineup, and that's Stu Pickles. I feel like Stu is arguably like most people's favorite character. Stu is awesome, especially like going back and watching stuff in Rugrats featuring Stu, like in my older years now, not being an adolescent, that like you can really relate to Stu, and he says some funny stuff. So I would definitely love to see Stu as a Funko Pop for the Rugrats lineup. And then the next is not a set of pops, but it is a 3-pack of pops, and that is for Blue's Clues, and that is simply just salt, pepper, and paprika. Love these characters. I think that they would go perfectly in pop form. Though there's a bunch of different characters I would like to see for Blue's Clues, I think that this 3-pack is arguably what I want to see the most.
It's funny enough, I almost wanted to put a Blue's Clues pop, and I figured, oh, I feel like MD's going to put that down, and I almost wrote basically that exact same like idea of a 3-pack with salt, pepper, and paprika. So that's pretty insane, and I am a little surprised, maybe unless you have it later listed, or else you probably actually would have included it. Is like I would assumed you would have written magenta on the list.
Definitely thought about it, but no, I did not put magenta, but I would like to see a magenta at some point as well. And then the next pop that I have on here is for a set that we were talking about, which is the Fairly Odd Parents. There's so many characters that need to be part of this set, but I only put one, and that's Jordan Von Strangle, my favorite character from the Fairly Odd Parents. He is awesome. I think that would be so cool. It could be a glow in the dark pop as well, where like the star on his staff / wand is glow in the dark. That would be awesome.
I also kind of figured you're putting a Fairly Odd Parents pop, but I was almost certain you were going to put Crimson Chin. But I feel like maybe that's also a thing that you do mention quite a bit on the channel, seeing a Crimson Chin, especially when we do Comic-Con exclusive predictions.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't want to go down the Crimson Chin route. And then the final pop on this list is another one that I have talked about a bunch on the channel. Arguably my most wanted pop for the entirety of Nickelodeon, and that is a glow-in-the-dark Flying Dutchman from SpongeBob Squarepants. How we have not got this yet is beyond me, but I feel like it's coming, and I know I say that a lot, but I feel like at some point soon we need to get this. We just got a wave of tons of different SpongeBobs. Give us the Flying Dutchman, and don't make it a common. Let's see this as a Comic-Con exclusive. That only makes sense to me.
I guess for me it would be 4 pops or pop sets, since we both had Dora the Explorer. So the first one I have is also Rugrats, but it's not Stu Pickles. It is a pop rise of Dill and the Reptar Wagon. I wanted to put some sort of Reptar pop. I couldn't really decide like what I would want for a Reptar, But then I remember looking at the Rugrats movie cover, and it's like, I believe all of them in the Reptar wagon, but the main character in like the seat with the steering wheel is Dill. And I don't think there's been a Dill pop actually for the lineup.
So yeah, when I was making my list, I almost put that on there. I thought about that, but I ended up going with Stu because I think that I would rather see a Stu Funko Pop.
Next pop I have listed is from Spongebob Squarepants, and it's not the Flying Dutchman. It is a Pop Towns of Mr. Crab with the Krusty Krab. I feel like that's bound to happen. I almost wanted to go with like, what if it's Patrick with the Rock, or if it's Squidward with his house? But the Krusty Krab, I feel like is something people would really want, and obviously a new Mr. Crab definitely makes sense for this Pop Town realistically. What the Mr. Crab pop would be doing, I don't exactly know, whether it's like him with a bunch of money, or maybe it's like, let's say like they copy like the U2's figure they did with like the small violin. I'm not exactly sure, but I feel like this is something that definitely could happen.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea and something that needs to happen.
Then we're going into a set of pops, actually, and I'm kind of surprised you didn't mention about this, and it's one of those shows that I remember watching, and that is Zoe 101. Zoe 101, I have a full-on set of pops, because I feel like if I were to, it has to be one of those sets that has to have, like, at least 6 pops in it. So examples being, of course, Zoe, Chase, Logan, Quinn, Lola, and Michael all being a part of that. Maybe you can do a Dustin, I'm not exactly sure. Perfect scenario would be Comic-Con exclusive, Stacy Dilson, probably one of my favorite characters. I could ship it in the morning. No, I'm not going to even bother doing the list, but I think Zoe 101 would be an awesome set of pops.
Yeah, that's definitely a set of pops I would probably buy or at least get Chase Matthews. But yeah, I think that that would be really cool. And I could just think of like the different versions of these characters that you can have.
And then the last set of pops I have, and I feel like MD might know where I'm going with this, and I've mentioned on the channel since literally day one, Ned's Declassified, School Survival Guide pops, and I only have basically 4 pops on this list, and I think that's perfectly fine for a little bit of an obscure show like Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide, and especially with the podcast out, it's the perfect 3, Ned Bigby, Cookie, and Mose. And that's really all you need. And I mentioned 3 to 4 because I think perfect scenario, Cookie has a chase being P Cookie. I think that'd be freaking hilarious. And then as terms to other characters, that'd be like down the line, like Comic-Con exclusives. Like if you had, I think his name is Seth, the guy who always had the ball spinning on his finger all the time, and just all these different characters. Of course, was it Gordy? I think it is, the janitor.
Yeah, definitely a big fan of Ned's and the podcast. I'm a pretty avid watcher of that. So yeah, I would definitely love to see some Ned's Declassified pops. And of course, yeah, there are characters that could easily be added to that to make it a bigger wave. But yeah, I wouldn't be mad if we just got the 3 main characters and then every Comic-Con just a new character for the set. And hopefully the first one being Coconut Head. I mean, come on, that would be a sweet pop.
Anyways, guys, that is going to be the end of this Nickelodeon edition of a Funko Popcast. And if you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know down below what you want to see next from Nickelodeon. And we hope to see you guys next time on the channel, whether it's a podcast or video. 1, 2, 3, I'm out of here.
Oh man. Peace in, peace out.